In a world without telephones, without video calls, and without digital IDs, how do you prove a message is real when the recipient has never seen your face? If you were a royal messenger in the year 1215, galloping across the rain-soaked, muddy fields of central England, you carry a parchment destined to change the entire course of Western history, the Magna Carta. But when you arrive at a remote castle, exhausted and covered in the mud of the road, you present the scroll to a skeptical, powerful baron. Consider the problem of trust in that room. The baron doesn't know you. He has absolutely no reason to believe that the words written on the parchment actually came from the hand of King John. For all he knows, you are simply a very clever peasant with a stolen horse and a talent for high-end calligraphy. He doesn't look at your face. He doesn't even look at the handwriting. Instead, he looks at the very bottom of the scroll where a heavy cord hangs from the parchment. There, pressed into a thick circular pool of hardened beeswax, is the Great Seal of the realm. That wax seal was the medieval world's version of verification. It was a physical tool of identity, an object carrying the weight of a person's entire story and power, projecting the authority of the throne across hundreds of miles. The seal was created by a signet ring, a one-of-a-kind object that stayed permanently on the king's finger or was kept under 24-hour armed guard. To possess that ring was to possess the king's voice. If that seal was pressed into the wax, the words on that page became law. If the seal was missing, or if the impression was blurry or faked, the document was worthless. The seal performed a vital psychological task. It solved the problem of trust at a distance. It allowed the king to project his sovereign identity into rooms he would never personally enter and to people who would never meet him in the flesh. It was a prop that did the work of authority so the king didn't have to. I'm Rahul Devinder Malik and this is Performance in Props. Today, the blue checkmark. For nearly 1,000 years, these symbols of authority, wax seals, family crests, royal crowns, and specialized uniforms were what we call high-friction objects. They were incredibly difficult to obtain. They required a massive investment of time, lineage, or institutional vetting to acquire. They were nearly impossible to forge with any accuracy. When you saw one, you knew that the person carrying it had been vetted by power higher than themselves. But today, we have moved the seal from physical wax to the liquid crystal screen. We've turned the king's signet ring into a tiny 8-pointed blue badge that sits next to a username. And in doing so, we haven't just changed the technology. We have completely rewritten the rules of how we perform authority in the digital age. Let's look at the prop itself. If we strip away the social meaning, the blue checkmark is physically insignificant. It's a tiny icon, barely 20 pixels wide, consisting of a simple white checkmark centered within a light blue jagged circle. On a modern smartphone screen, it takes up less than 1% of the visual real estate. But in the world of social theater, those 20 pixels have become a power tool. The blue checkmark first appeared on our screens in 2009. It wasn't born out of desire for status, it was born out of a legal crisis. A famous professional baseball manager named Tony La Russa sued Twitter because someone was pretending to be him online. The platform solution was verification. They would check your government ID, confirm you were exactly who you claim to be, and then grant you the badge. Initially, the checkmark was purely functional. It was a tool of authenticity. It simply meant this person is actually this person. It was the digital equivalent of having a driver's license. But as the years went by, something strange happened in our collective psychology. Because the badge was originally only given to people who were deemed notable, such as celebrities, world leaders, high-ranking journalists, and global brands, the meaning of the prop began to shift. It stopped being a tool of authenticity and started being a tool of status. We stopped seeing it as a verified identity and started seeing it as a VIP pass. In the psychology of the infinite scroll, the blue checkmark acts as a visual speed bump. When you're flying through your feed at 80 miles an hour, your brain is consistently making split-second decisions about where to stop. Your eyes are naturally trained to look for cues of authority. When you see that tiny blue badge, your brain performs a micro-calculation. It says, this person is important. This person has been chosen by the system. This person's words are worth more of my limited attention than the unverified person below or above them. This is the glow of the badge. It's a halo effect. Because the symbol is historically associated with people of high achievement, we subconsciously attach all the qualities of a notable person to anyone who possesses it. We assume they are more competent, more successful, and more trustworthy. We give them the benefit of the doubt. But then, the hardware of the system changed. A few years ago, social media platforms realized that the demand for status was so incredibly high that they could put a price tag on it. They moved the checkmark from being a badge of merit that you earn through your actions to a subscription service that you buy with a credit card. Now, for a few dollars a month, anyone can buy the King's Seal. But here is the deep structural irony. When everyone can wear the crown stops being a symbol of power and starts being a piece of costume jewelry. We are currently living through a moment where the prop of authority is in direct conflict with the performance of authority. The pixels remain, but the trust has evaporated. So the question remains, why do we still want it? Even though we know intellectually that the badge can be bought by anyone with a bank account, why do thousands of people still sign up for it every single month? It's because in the world we live now, we are all performing the authority. We have entered a period where your most valuable asset isn't actually your product, your bank balance, or your service. It is your attention share. We are all competing for a tiny slice of a shrinking pie of human focus. And to win that focus, we feel an immense pressure to perform an identity of importance. We feel that if we don't look like an authority, we will be ignored. The blue checkmark has become a tool of signaling. It allows you to signal to your specific tribe that you are an insider. Think about the different ways people use this prop to perform in their digital ecosystems. First, consider the corporate veteran. This is the person who has spent 20 years in the trenches of the industry. They use the checkmark to validate their hard-won expertise. They post long-form strategic insights and industry forecasts. For them, the checkmark sits there like a silent digital master's degree next to their name. It tells the reader, you can trust this advice because the system has recognized my career. Then, there is the modern grifter. This person buys the checkmark specifically to fake it till they make it. They want that glow of the badge to rub off on their content so they can sell you a course or a lifestyle. They're using the prop to perform an identity of success before any real success actually exists. They are trying to use the symbol to skip the years of grueling work it takes to build a real reputation. They aren't performing authority, they are performing a parody of authority. But there is deeper, more subtle performance at play here, the performance of the gatekeeper. For a long time, the blue checkmark was a way for the digital elite to recognize each other. It was a secret handshake. If you were verified, you were part of the club. You could direct message other verified people and expect a response. When the gates were kicked open and the badge was put up for sale, that club was disrupted. This created a massive identity crisis for the original badge holders. Many of them tried to perform their status by refusing to pay for the new badge, trying to signal that their authority was natural and earned, while the new people's authority was merely purchased. They turned their lack of paid badge into a new kind of status symbol. As a leader, an entrepreneur, or a creative, you have to understand that your customers and your audience are doing the exact same thing. They are looking for ways to signal their own status to their tribe. They are looking for tools of belonging that make them feel like they are part of an in-group. If you provide your audience with a way to perform authority, whether it is a founding member's badge in your community, a certified expert status in your program, or even just a very exclusive piece of merchandise, you are giving them a prop to help them in their own social theater. But you have to be incredibly careful. If your symbol of status are too easy to get, they become cheap and eventually annoying. If they are too hard to get, they become elitist and alienating. The sweet spot, the place where true loyalty lives, is earned authority. In a world where blue checkmark can be bought for a price of a sandwich, true authority is no longer found in the pixels on the screen. It is found in the consistency of the performance. People are getting smarter. They are developing a cringe radar. They are looking past the badge and looking at the behavior. They are asking a very simple, very old question. Does this person actually have the king's signet ring, or did they just buy a piece of blue plastic from a vending machine? So how do we navigate this landscape? How do you build a real, unshakable authority when the traditional symbols of status are being democratized and in the process diluted? It requires a fundamental shift in your strategy. You have to move away from status signaling and towards signaling competence. Point 1. Focus on high-friction reputation. In the age of low-friction status, things you can buy instantly with a click, the only thing that retains its value is high-friction work. This is the work that cannot be bought. It is the deep dive research, the 5-year-long relationships, the consistent track record of solving difficult, messy problems for real people. Don't worry about the pixels next to your name. Focus on the work that the pixels were originally supposed to represent. If your performance is undeniable, you don't need a 20-pixel icon to prove you're an authority. Your results will do the shouting for you. Point 2. Develop your own tribal language. One of the most powerful ways to perform authority is through the specific words you choose. Every specialized group on the planet, whether it's the medical surgeons, specialized software engineers, or dedicated football supporters, has its own secret handshake of language and nuance. Use your own tool of identity by speaking a language that only your true tribe understands. When you speak with the precision, the humor, and the nuance of an insider, you are performing an authority that a purchased badge can never mimic. You are showing that you belong because you know the code, not because you bought the pass. Point 3. Move from validation to contribution. Most people chase the blue checkmark because they are looking for the world to validate them. They want the system to pat them on the head and say you are important. But real lasting authority comes from contribution. Instead of asking, how can I look more important to my followers? Ask, how can I be more useful to my community? When you become the person who consistently provides the most clarity, the most value, and the most support to your tribe, the tribe will verify you themselves. Their attention, their trust, and their long-term loyalty are the only checkmarks that actually matter in the long run. Authority isn't a badge you pin to your chest to impress strangers. It is the relationship you build with your audience through every word you speak, every piece of work you produce, and every promise you keep. In the world of the blue checkmark, the most radical performance you can give, the one that will actually make people stop scrolling, is simply being exactly the person you say you are. I'm Rahul Devinder Malik. Thank you for listening.